Okay, so I'm here with Paul Hooson, and it's March 2nd, and we're working on an interview here for the Cultural Master Plan on Bowen. So welcome, Paul. I'm very excited to talk with you today and to learn a little bit about who you are and the inspiration that you bring to Bowen Island.
Sure.
Could you please begin with telling us a little bit about who you are and what you do for a living?
Okay, well, I'm Paul Hooson, and I've lived on Bowen Island 30 years now. I moved here just during the year of Expo 86, which I was one of the resident performers there for the entire time. At that point in time, I was living actually in Peterborough, Ontario. And I come from the west here, so I decided it was time to move back to the west, but needed a rural place that was close to a major city because I actually am a clown, professional clown. Therapeutic clown and media puppeteer. So I work in film and television doing puppetry, particularly for science fiction and horror movies.
Wow.
And I'm one of the pioneers of therapeutic or healthcare clowning, which takes clowning into the realm of healthcare, and you build relationships with children, families, elders, and caregivers in hospitals to help alleviate pain and normalize the environment, provide play opportunities for kids and staff and stuff in hospitals. And then I was also my entertainment clowning. I started clowning, I think, in about well, I created my iconic clown Alexander in 1975, so I've been doing nothing but professional clowning since 1975. Previous to that, I did a lot of street performing. I am a street performer as well, so I'm a street and a theater clown. A lot of audience theater for young audiences. I'm one of the first people that did children's festivals here in Canada, and I actually studied in France from 70 to 72 with Marcel Marceau. And yeah, so that's the thumbnail.
That's a lot of information. So can you give me a little idea, if you think about all that you've said, and what was the inspiration that you know of? How, if you want to share that a little bit, to become that person who, through clowning. I mean, clowning is a very particular medium, and it's a gateway that very few people actually know about. Even though you know what a clown is, you can see that that's a clown, but clowning has a very, very strong relationship to the humanity of who we are.
Right.
So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, the humanity is what it's all about. And traditionally in circus, they say, clown is the heart of the circus. It's the peg that the circus hangs on, because you have all the skills of circus, all the amazing things that happen in circus, but what brings the humanity into circus is the vulnerability of the clown. So it's absolutely critical, just that humanity, and that's probably what brought me to it. I grew up and I graduated in 1966, so I was ripe for hitting the counterculture, and I hit counterculture big time, 66, 67. I started to perform in the street, just playing music and stuff in the street. Went to Montreal, got, Expo 67 was in Montreal, and I got exposed to the Czechoslovakian clowns. And really, I had been exposed actually to mime earlier in my life and got excited about it, but left it kind of behind. So I always had an interest in theater when I was in high school. Got out of high school, hit the counterculture revolution, basically, where you had Big Agitprop, you had the San Francisco Mime Troupe, and you had all these people that were politically involved and using their theater skills to do that, taking theater to the street. So my inspiration actually came from that, from activism in terms of civil rights, human rights, gay rights, abortion rights, all these things. It just stemmed from the era that I actually grew up in, I think. And I came from a very humanitarian family. My father was a social worker and my mom was a nurse.
Okay.
So we come from a family of carers. We care. Basically our ethic is kindness. As Dalai Lama says, kindness is what it's all about. So for me, the step from there to actually becoming a clown was just experimental. I mean, I was searching around. I was traveling the world. I was basically earning my keep just playing music in the streets and stuff like that. And I got interested in mime and decided to pursue it. So I did manage to get accepted to Marceau School in 1970. And Paris was a hotbed of street performers at that point in time. This not just your traditional putting this 6-inch nail through your cheek and all those traditional strange kind of things that street performers did in those years, but it was evolving into what now we look at as Cirque du Soleil, which is spectacle.
Yes.
And so spectacle was really on the upswing, and I came from a theater background, so spectacle really appealed to me. So it just kind of went in little increments. When I actually discovered I was a clown, because I performed as a mime for a few years, and it wasn't really working so well. I actually had the physical technique to be a mime, but I didn't have the heart, didn't have the inner monologue, the mind of the character. In 1975, I was teaching mime at a dance school in Toronto, and I was asked to become a part of their performing troupe. They were touring schools, elementary schools, with a dance show, and they needed a clown to go in between the dance numbers so the dancers could change their costumes and catch their breath.
Right.
And of course, the role of the clown is to re-engage the audience, because you don't have a fourth wall with clown. It's not presentational. It involves your audience. You hear what your audience says. You react to what your audience says.
So it's in the moment, really.
It's very in the moment, very improvisational. It's around a skeleton. You have a skeleton about an idea for a piece, but you play off what the audience hands you, and you improvise on that. And I discovered at that moment that I actually that was my skill. That was who I was. It was just like an epiphany. It came in an instant. I had never performed as a clown before. I had never performed for children before, and actually, children were a key to my becoming what I am, because I don't feel comfortable on stage. I actually have quite debilitating stage fright, but in front of children I felt safe, and they reacted immediately to me. And my mime training taught me that when I stepped out as the clown, they laughed at me. You just don't just go on and do stuff. What you do is you stop and you turn your head and you react. You go, what?
So you engage.
Stopping, yeah. But the way you encourage a conversation is that you don't talk all the time.
Right.
You make a proposal, and the proposal at that instant was just me stepping on stage looking ridiculous.
Right.
They laughed and pointed at me and said, look at how silly that guy is, in the way they did it. And I stopped and I turned and I looked at them with kind of an indignant look, and then they laughed again. And so it's very methodical. Boom, boom, boom.
Right.
So it's them, me, and I realized instantly that was the key to communication.
That was a conversation.
Yeah, and it became a conversation. So it just evolved from there. I lived at a time when you could do that. You could do theatrical clown and street clown and explore it and not have to worry.
So taking it into the medical realm, where you're actually dedicated to helping and creating a form of clown that is so compassionate and so sensitive to the needs of children. Can you talk a little bit about that, the evolution of that? Because you say you're pioneers. It means that you've been doing that for a long time. Now we have, in the popular culture, the image of Patch Adams and stuff. Do you have any relation to that, or is that side by side that you've been evolving?
Well, Patch Adams is a whole different.
Okay, I mean, people when they think about that, they'll think about Patch Adams, because
Absolutely.
That's what the popular culture's been given.
It's the first thing they think of.
Yeah, so
and I usually differentiate. Like, obviously, Patch Adams is a medical doctor being a clown, and I'm a clown,
right,
portraying a medical doctor.
Right.
In my therapeutic clowning work, now not all therapeutic clowns will have a medical character, but I chose to have a medical character. My character, Doc Willikers, is like an old-time country doctor. Very silly, but a little bit full of himself, and he's a little bit dishonest. He's always trying to cheat people out of their money and get married and all that sort of stuff. So he's got a lot of dimension to him. That and you say that people know they see a clown, they know what a clown is. Well, actually, most people will not recognize many of the clowns in our society. Donald Trump is a clown, and Donald Trump is not your fall down. There's two kinds of clown in my world, and I didn't train as a clown, so I just picked this up from various different sources of how people, the vernacular of clown. And in my case, I just define clown as a red and a white clown. The red clown is the one that falls down, the one you think of as, often they'll have a fright wig in the American tradition, but it's the one who is inept.
Okay.
And the white clown is the ringmaster, the rule-bound
the one who's got all the
Keystone
control.
Cop.
Yeah.
You'll always see that in Laurel and Hardy. You'll see
Right.
that. So when I clown, I switch back and forth because I'll come out, I'll enter the room as an authority figure. I know everything, and the kids will go, "Well, you just said something that's obviously not right." So you don't know, and it erodes my stature and it elevates their stature. So what I've done is I've started out as the white, the rule-bound character, and I've achieved success through failure, which is another tenet of clowning. Is I've succeeded in eroding my stature down to basically nothing, while the kid is becoming the white clown.
So he gains power.
The child, yeah, or whoever your audience.
Yeah.
Audience is. So when I say Trump is a clown, he's the white clown. He's the cranky one.
Right.
You got to do this. You got to do that. Blah 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 blah. And so I see clowns all around me in life that people don't necessarily think of clowns. But anyway, it's in terms of therapeutic clowning. I started very early. I had a good fortune of meeting a person when I was in 1976, when I was really just starting as a clown. I'd only been a professional clown for a year and a half or 2 years. But I ended up in Halifax, Nova Scotia, and my first clown partner, Ron Wagner, we founded a company together, a theater company. And but he had been doing he was a puppeteer who was becoming a clown. And I was a clown already, so I taught him clown. He taught me puppetry, which was just fantastic. But he had a pilot project at the Children's Hospital in Halifax in 1976, where he would go in as a puppeteer he had a rabbit character, Jack Rabbit, and he would engage kids on the ward. You're not doing a show. You're building a relationship with these kids. So he would go, room to room to room, person to person to person, under the supervision of the child life department. So he learned all about hygiene and mental hygiene, emotional hygiene, and all the how you respect all the different people that work in the hospital and all the different tasks that need to be done in a hospital. And it was revolutionary. It was it was just and the puppets that he developed are being used worldwide now. So every child life department in Canada uses these puppets. So I had this introduction. This is the power of puppets. And because he wanted to learn clown, he had just started putting on a clown face and clown stuff, and he had no idea what it was, what goes on inside a clown's mind, how a clown's mind works. So I basically shared that with him, and he taught me puppetry, and so we would go in as clowns, on a regular basis. Every week or every 2 weeks we'd go in. This is one of the tenets of therapeutic clowning, your regular element in the hospital, in hospital life. And at one point he said, we should be funny bone doctors. And we laughed and went, yeah, that'd be a good idea. But then our careers took over. I founded my own company, and we were touring children's festivals all over the country. And so that idea never came to fruition. He carried on working with his puppets, with the Kidney Foundation, and also because he built anatomically correct puppets, so they could explain. Kids will talk to a puppet when they won't talk to a doctor or a therapist. Yeah. So it was a very, very powerful tool, and we realized that that you could do that with a clown as well. So it just laid dormant, and I pursued that just sporadically. I visit old folks' homes, or when you're at a festival, they'll take you to a children's hospital. And I was already really aware and highly tuned to that environment. And then I heard about a group, the Big Apple Circus in New York City, which is a European-style one-ring circus. Their founder, Michael Christensen, had an opportunity to go into hospitals as a clown doctor, as a clown in a doctor costume, and this is in New York City, and it was just amazingly successful. So they expanded that into this was in 1986, into a 3-month project, which was so successful. They have 7 hospitals, and they have 20 or 30 or 40 clowns now all over the country. Anyway, I heard about this, and I think I heard about it in about 1989 or 1990. There was a big article in Life magazine, Time Life, on Michael's work, and I went, this is what I was doing 10, 15 years ago, and I was at a point in my life, and I had moved to Bowen. I'd been living on Bowen by then probably about 6 years. And I had time on my hands from January to March. That's kind of a dead time for me at that. So I decided that I was going to see if it was possible to start a program like this. So I approached Children's Hospital. They said, wow, this is an interesting idea. So I went to the Canada Council and got some money. started a pilot project in '94, and '95 got a senior B, which is a pretty major grant, and I visited and interned with Michael in his group in New York City, and also a bunch of groups in Europe, all over Europe, and realized that there was actually another organization that had predated Michael in terms of starting therapeutic clowning, which was Karen Ridd in Winnipeg Health Sciences Center.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, so she predated. They have a different approach. It's all through child life, which is, I won't go into what child life is, but they take care of all the psychosocial needs of kids in hospitals. So anyway, they developed a program of a clown, not a medical character clown, but a clown coming in on a regular basis, and they wrote a scientific paper on it, and it's all well documented. So Canada was first in the world to do this, which is pretty amazing. And I became friends and colleagues with the people that program in Winnipeg. It carried on for many, many years. It still goes on. It's the oldest program in the world, and the fellow David Langdon, who is the director of that program and their only clown, their solo clown, he's been working there since '89. So he's been working longer in hospitals than anybody in the world. It's an amazing program. But yeah, so now we've got this profession just growing in leaps and bounds in the last 20 years. Yeah. So now it's hundreds of performers in dozens of countries, and it's considered a legitimate adjunct it's like an alternative. It's not a therapy. We're not therapists, but we have a therapeutic effect. So we work in concert with the medical team and try and make good things happen in a hospital that would not necessarily, because it's such a strict and artificial environment.
It brings the warmth and the connection that we need in order to heal, in order to make it possible.
And the humanity is the absolute key to it. Good listening, good understanding, having good boundaries, because you're fairly frequently getting to know kids that are dying. I work at Canuck Place as well, which is the only freestanding pediatric palliative facility in the country.
Right.
And that was pretty rewarding also. But you have to kind of separate yourself a little bit from what would be normally a grief-stricken moment.
Yes.
And just go, I just play into the eyes of the kids, like whatever's going on medically and so on and so forth. And if kids are blind or deaf or basically in a coma, it doesn't really matter. I work at Sunny Hill as well, which is, we see lots of kids with near drowning and head injuries and acquired head injuries and stuff like that. So they're in a pretty altered state from who they were and what they could do before the injury. So it's very rewarding.
If I may recap on what you just said, what you're saying is that you're sensitive to the state that they're in, and you play with the humanity of that and the compassion of holding a soul or a human being in the state of compassion.
Yeah. And you always struggle with, is it empathy? What is it? Because basically I don't focus on the dis-ease or the illness at all. You have to be aware of it, and you have to function around the considerations of that. But it's really, I'm there to play. Yeah. I'm there to engage a play experience, and if it's not a performance, and if it's not, it can be just caring. It can be just sitting with the family or the child and listening to them. It doesn't have to be comedy, entertainment, or anything like that. You're just a friend.
Right.
Yeah, and it can grow into a lot of crazy fun stuff. Music's very important to working in a hospital. I do magic, but it's a lot of it's just verbal. A lot of it's just conversational.
Right.
The stupid question.
The stupid question. Love it. Yeah. So when you think of Bowen, Paul, what do you and your work here? And how Bowen has touched you, and what Bowen has given you, and what you've given Bowen. What comes to mind? What are the thoughts you have on that?
Well, Bowen, it's the most wonderful place in the world to live. I just can't imagine. My daughter just spent last winter in Halifax. The coldest winter in 100 years, and I spent a lot of time in cold places. But anyway, no, Bowen's a wonderful place. It's a caring community. It can be divisive, that there are issues, but when push comes to shove, those issues don't matter. What matters is people helping people, and so What Bowen brought for me was, one, proximity to a major city, so I could particularly pursue my career in film, but also because it's a major medical center. So my hospitals are all the major, they're the three major Western hospitals, anything west of the Rockies. So it was important. It's not why I moved here, but it became a reason why this is a good place to be. So I'm close to a major city, very, very important. What I've given to Bowen, I don't know. I don't really focus on that so much. I spent a lot of time working on the community center initiative, years and years and years and years of helping design and plan and hopefully realize that. And it seems to be gathering a little momentum again. But that was a long journey. That was 25 years with very little to show for it. But mostly I just like, I'm a quiet, kind of reclusive person. I don't like to be in the public eye. And, people don't bother me. They know I'm the clown that got arrested on the ferry. I'm the reason we have a 10-minute cutoff instead of a 5-minute cutoff at Horseshoe Bay. I have a lot of history on this island. It's not necessarily, a lot of people will not appreciate my history on Bowen Island. But in terms of what I brought to Bowen Island, I have a few examples. I've, worked at Beaufest a fair bit, and I'm always usually in the parade. I try and, support any fundraising effort at all. The new library annex, or Bowen Island Arts Council, or the choir, or wherever I'll go out and pull out the ukulele and play a song or something like that. So, mostly I think. I don't know.
So you have a strong relationship to Bowen on every level. It sounds like you live here. You really live here.
I do.
Yeah. So can you tell us a little bit about the relationship you have to clowning in Bowen? Is there any memories or any experiences that you've had that would work into?
What a coincidence! I just happened to think of one. Well, my favorite moment is when I brought Wilson Liu, who is he was a young boy, 14, who had a life-limiting illness, and that illness included neurological degeneration. So, when he was about 14, he had expressed a wish to try being a clown. Now, this is a boy who's virtually blind, walks with a cane, is like autistic in that his mind flies all over the place. I do have permission to use his name, by the way, because I'm doing a presentation in the next couple of weeks at a big medical conference in Lisbon on just this particular experience. But Wilson was 14, and he remembered as a child that he liked clowns. That was before he went blind. He was starting to go blind at 5 and getting seizures at about 10. So he expressed a wish to try being a clown. So the Sunny Hill approached me and said, you're a clown, would you be interested in taking on this project? And I went, oh yeah, I'll give that a try. So it was amazing. And it was hard. We had to. The community really kicked in. We decided we were going to be in the parade as first responders, as the fire department, the volunteer fire department for first response clowns. So we were clown firemen. And I got the adaptive bike, which is a wheelchair bicycle. Someone on a bicycle with a wheelchair mounted on the front, from Sunny Hill, and we decorated it up like it was our float, it was our fire truck, and got him over here with his family. I mean, it was very complicated because you have to get him into makeup and onto the parade route by 10:30 in the morning, so that means he's got to stay overnight, and he has fatigue issues and nutrition issues, and there were cultural issues because I believe he's maybe Vietnamese or something like that. But anyway, so we got him over the night before with his family, and Laurel and Rob Bailey donated their B&B, and the Van Lithiotas had trucks available for us to get from the end of the parade route over to the festival grounds. And we went in the parade. It was just fantastic, with the firemen and the RCMP, and we rode the parade, squirting people, and Wilson was a white-faced clown, so he had a great time, and we've developed a way to communicate. So because I wanted him to be the lead clown, so we went in the parade, and then we went into the festival grounds later in the afternoon. We did a half-hour, 45-minute rove, which is a walking set, just interacting with people. It was incredible. It was just laughter, 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 and he, as a blind person, hearing this laughter, I mean, the photos of him are just beaming. He's just happy. Happy.
He's happy to bring his light.
And you know, at the end of the whole thing, he won the blue ribbon for the best individual float, and his parents, you know, they were just so kind, and this whole community came out for him, you know, and
that's a great memory.
It was wonderful, and he actually just died about 3 months ago at the age of 21. So, but it was just an unbelievable experience, you know, of a community understanding who this was and wanting to make it happen, making it happen, and it's been such a success. You know, for me, the most pleasing thing is that nobody knew he was in any way disabled or blind.
That's perfect.
You know, and the way we arranged that was really interesting because he had to be on my arm, and we had the spritzer from for plants. I got, you know, he understood that it had to, you know, it couldn't be too high or it hit people in the eye, and it couldn't be in the middle. So kind of he had to be in this spectrum here, you know, from the waist down, pointing it. It doesn't matter where. All I did was gently squeeze his arm, and he'd squeeze the thing. So it was just
Very
like, it was
nice.
invisible, squeeze. So it was like I was squirting. And then roars of laughter, you know, and of course, I get him to squirt people's bare legs and then say, just a service here at Full Fest, right? Just providing the service. Because they turn around really, what is this? It's one of my favorite things to do. I've done it for years. But anyway, it was so successful, and it's an absolute highlight of my life, you know, to have brought such joy to this boy and this family.
But also to the community. You did it on every level.
I think so.
An excellent memory. So with that, can you talk a little bit about the extension of your work now, that you're actually touching a world community? It's not just Bowen, it's not just Vancouver or BC or, you know, Canada-wide. It's now international. Would you like to talk about that a bit?
Sure. Well, actually, it's always been international for me. I just happened to recluse here on Bowen Island, so it's something that was happening before I came to Bowen and continued to happen, because I do have a national and international career, tiny as it is. But yeah, no, the therapeutic clowning is the highlight of my life. I mean, I do enjoy doing puppetry in the movies, and I have enjoyed being an entertainment clown. I've written a number of shows that have toured. I've toured all up to the north, into the Northwest Territories, and everywhere in Canada, and, you know, Newfoundland. It's just like, it's an incredible country to be a clown in. It's so accessible that you can go to any little rural place. I mean, I've performed for kids up in Faro and the Yukon who had never seen a clown before. They'd never ever seen a live clown before. They were scared of the clown, which is, you haven't touched on clowns, fear of clowns, but they loved the show. And at the end of the show, before they left, and this was in a little double wide trailer. That was the school, a double wide trailer with maybe 30 kids, all native kids. And they didn't want to. They had, you know, with native kids, they don't just watch the show. They have to talk about it. So you do something, they go, and they talk to each other. See, he did that. Then they look up again. Let's see what he's going to do now. So it really impacts your timing. But at the end of the show, I always, you know, hugged or shook hands of every child on the way out the door. So that was my style. And they were afraid to go past me. One little girl, she went, okay, I'm going to pluck up my courage, and she went running by me, and she touched my foot, and I have quite large clown feet. And at that point, they went, oh, he's safe. And so they all came by and hugged me and touched my feet and did that. So, you know, it's grown. The therapeutic clowning became it became my reason. It was my career. I am now retired from that, so semi-retired. But it became the crowning glory of what I do as a clown. And yes, it has spread all over the world. It started out when I started doing it. There was 3 of us in Canada. I was the first clown doctor, but there was a program started in hospital for sick children about 6 months before mine with a single clown. And then, of course, David Langdon from Winnipeg, who'd been in a lot longer. So there was 3 of us in the country. We're just counting it because we're all going to Lisbon for this international conference. And in Canada, there's still only about 65 or 70 of us in Canada. But worldwide now, there's more people in a single program in the United States than there are in our entire country. Or you take Le Rire Médecin in France. I mean, they have probably 80 clowns in 15 hospitals. And you've got Austria, you've got Germany, you've got Israel, you've got South America, Argentina, Brazil, you've got Cuba, you have Mexico, obviously United States, Canada, we have Japan. They're all over the world now. Switzerland, you know, Kazakhstan, all these places, Russia. So there's probably thousands and thousands of people doing this, and we've actually emerged. We made our inroads into the medical community because we're doing research on the power of this, how you can communicate with a child in a coma, that you do stimulate brain activity that can be measurable, that there's less pain medication that's needed for kids to recover from an illness or surgery. There's just it's just the research is starting to pile up. You have Israel that at the end of it they have a therapeutic clowns, or they call them healthcare clowns or medical clowns in every single hospital in Israel, and the same every pediatric hospital in Australia has them as well. So you're talking thousands, hundreds of programs and thousands of practitioners. And the research is starting. There's now master's degree programs in Israel on therapeutic clowning. There's degree programs in other countries that are starting. There's federations, and it's just grown like topsy. It's 30 years
Beautiful,
now.
beautiful, and to be part of that progression and to be involved.
I'm very proud of it. Yeah.
Oh, it sounds fantastic.
It'll be fun because these people are my oldest friends at this point. Michael Christensen and Carolyn, who started the Rire Médecin in France. She was originally American but lived in France. When I say I worked as a street performer in France, when I was at Marceau's, she actually gave me my first paid job. I was working as a street performer with a group called Les Palais de Merveille. For a year, I worked on the streets of Paris and with this spectacle theater. We shared the pitch with Philippe Petit, who was the guy who walked the World Trade Center. Did a command performance for Salvador Dali in his hotel room. And so, and I'm going to see Carolyn in 2 weeks, and I haven't seen her in years and years. And we both came to she was one of the original Big Apple Circus clowns that developed their technique in therapeutic clown, in what they call clown doctoring. And, I like to think she taught me how to put white face makeup on. That was actually when I actually really became a clown instead of a mime. And I had no idea that that's the role I was playing until years later.
So you get to meet up.
Just these circles, they just keep swirling around and coming back, and it doesn't matter where you are. It's all in here, There's always an opportunity to find a way to help somebody feel better about their life, I think.
Thank you. That's hopefully a beautiful way to express who you are, and that's your mandate. That's your way of living.
Mandate. Absolutely.
So what I'd like you to do is just, is there anything else that you would say about the profession and about your relationship with the culture on Bowen specifically that you would like to talk about? Bowen has a particular cultural need, as well as flavor, you might say, because it's built on the people who are here at the moment, because it's continually changing. Do you have any thoughts on that you'd like to share? Anything that comes to mind?
Well, everybody fulfills a role on Bowen, and my role on Bowen has been not just Mr. Friendly. My role on Bowen has been more prickly than that. I've advocated for some ferry reform when the ferry people were not, when the corporation was not treating us well, particularly foot passengers. There have been times, working on the community center initiative was very frustrating over the years. So I've had ups and downs with that, and times when I felt closer or more distant from my community. And it does change, as you say, it changes over. But really, I was kind of the last of the old timers coming here. You come here in '86, things didn't start to boom till '88, '89, I'd say. And so I was still kind of just on the tail end of the hippie influx of people, Right. That I think, the fact that it's rural, so that the rules are flexible on Bowen Island, at least in those years, they were much more flexible. And it allowed people to get to know you, and it allowed people to try something that was risky or different.
And to really get involved.
Yeah, exactly. And it was such a small, when I moved here, there was, I think, only 1,600 people or something like that. So, there's a few more now, and there was a few less before I got here. So there's nothing new. But in terms of what it's brought for me is it just brings me a place that I actually belong and live. Like, I feel like I belong in the world, and as a performing artist, arts, especially as a street performer, you go to a lot of places. I never lived in a house longer than 2 years in my whole life before I moved to Bowen. I've been in the house I'm in now for 27 years. So you put down roots, and it's not just my age. It's because this is a very special place, and there are the needs that are here. What clowns bring? Well, everybody brings similar things. Like when you go out and you're part of the community choir, or and Ellen does such a fabulous job with the choir, and people come out and they take risks. They expose themselves to grow and to help the community come together. So. I don't think I've done anything particularly unusual. Clowning is unusual, but it's just more of the same. It's like, Mary Letson and her gym, and supporting so many causes through her ability to organize fun runs and things like that. You have just like people like that everywhere on Bowen. So. But that is the quality of Bowen that I love, and that I think is really makes it a special place. In terms of where we need to go, we really need to have some understanding that the arts are as important as recreation, and I'll say it.
Thank you. I think
there's been the support for recreation is 10 times what it is for the arts. Culture is, in my world, just as important as recreation. It exercises the mind and the body, and it encourages people to be the best they can be, and it's important. It's really important, but a lot of people don't really. They think, oh, it's a sideline, or it's frivolity, and it parallels what people's attitudes towards clown. They say, yeah, I'm a clown. They go, yeah, but what do you do for a living? What do you really do for a living? Eventually, I say, well, I'm an actor, or I'm an entertainer, or something, because they just go, huh, what?
Yeah.
But if you're an actor, then you earn money from doing that. But you're a clown. No, people just do that. Like anybody can be a clown. And, I worked a lot in Ontario and Ottawa. The catchword is everybody here is a clown in Ottawa, particularly. So I was like, okay, yeah. But no, I mean, what I do is unusual, but not particularly special. I mean, there's so many people on this island in their own field of work or interest that do what I do.
Thank you. In closing, I'd like to ask whether or not you have any particular request for the culture of Bowen. Do you see anything particular that you need to see happen, or that you would like to see happen as far as the culture on Bowen?
Yeah. Oh well, that doesn't take much thought. The first thing is a cultural space that's appropriate for public assembly and presentation. The second is either some kind of a service agreement with the municipality, between the municipality and BIAC, to put the Arts Council on the same level footing and the same administrative footing as recreation. You have community services, you have community recreation. They get a bunch of funding, and they are within the municipal organization, within the municipal structure, so they get funded in different ways that are even invisible. The Arts Council is arm's length, even though the last cultural plan said that they were the lead agency to deliver cultural services. It hasn't. That means very little in terms of the municipal hierarchy, because oh well, look, we give you $50,000, you should be happy, but recreation gets $750,000, but you don't see that because it's buried into other line items on their 5-year plan, or the annual budget or whatever. So yeah, I need to see a space be realized, and I'm pretty discouraged about that. I walked away from it after having done an incredible amount of work for 20 years on it. I handed all my material over. It's just sitting there ready to be acted on. When somebody with some vision and some courage takes that on. And I'm really tired of people saying the arts is a frivolity. It's not a frivolity. It's absolutely central to the economy here, to the social well-being and the emotional well-being of our community. And it's pretty discouraging when it doesn't happen. And you talk about turnover, because there is turnover here. Every 3 to 5 years, you have a bunch of new people come. They don't understand the history of these initiatives. They don't understand the importance of these initiatives. You know, you go to other cities and it's like, yeah, culture is really important, but you come to Long Island and people here pay lip service to it, but they don't put a hand in their pockets. I'm talking about the municipal government.
Okay. Well, I'm appreciating that you've brought some clarity from your perspective to those issues, and I really appreciate that you've been able to